Call to order the November meeting of local planning agency. I'll start with a roll call and introduce Thomas Cannon as our newest member.
Thomas Cannon. Steve Coates.
James McPherson.
Sam Kincaid.
Robert Rennie.
Janet Wilson.
All right, everybody stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I guess also to announce that Melissa Ozenek is out. I'm sorry, she's off the board. All right, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
moved to approve the agenda.
Second.
And everybody, please. All right, motion carries. And a motion to approve the minutes, please.
Rennie makes a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion carried unanimously. And are there any public comments not already on tonight's agenda? Unheard. Okay, take it away.
So for the first matter here is, this is the request for variance at 34 Temple Avenue Southwest. I'll need to swear in both Mr. Gibson and whoever the applicant is for this one. Is that all Houston wants? Actually, if I swear everyone in all at once, I don't have to do y'all individually. So if everyone will stand, raise your right hands. Do all y'all swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and the truth, so help you God? Okay, all of y'all are under oath. So that means when y'all come up and present your matter, you'll be testifying as opposed to providing public comment.
Jim Gibson, Grove Management Director for the City of Fort Walton Beach. Before I get into the details on this one, I do want to note that there is an error on the subject of this item. There are several variances at play in this particular case here, but in the subject it does say for the variance request to setbacks and maximum allowable impervious. The impervious is not an issue on this one, so that is an error on that subject on there. For this one, so this is the subject property is 34 Temple Avenue Southwest, and the registered owners are Christopher and Stephanie Zink. This property, when the subdivision was done for this property, there was a 5-foot utility and drainage easement reserved on all interior lot lines. We have a lot of these in the city when the subdivisions were initially done. Back in, this one was 1963. In 2016, our Public Works Department went out there to replace a stormwater line, and right now they put in a 42-inch, so a very large stormwater pipe that runs through the Zink's backyard, and it was not put in where the easement is. It's approximately 14 feet off of their rear property line into his property. So whereas normally that would be in that easement back there, this one's sitting a good 14 feet into his property line. Our Public Works is working with him to basically vacate the easements that are on the rear and side property line of where he's at, and grant an easement over the actual stormwater pipe, so this doesn't become an issue down the road in the future. This all came up when the owners came in to talk about putting a shed on the property, or a detached garage on the property, and that's when we looked at it and it's like, okay, well, it can't go over that stormwater pipe, so that kind of got us to the situation we're at right now. On September 29th, 2025, we did receive the application for the variance request outlined in section 5.1.2 of the Land Development Code regarding the accessory structure and setback requirements. That was initially what we were looking at, was the setbacks on there. And then the variance application was submitted for a reduction of the 7.5-foot side setback for an accessory structure down to be a 2-foot side setback for that property. After more discussions with the property owner, we realized we're going to have to probably bring a few different variances into this one just to achieve what he's trying to do there. So right now the plan he's got is to put a detached garage in the rear side of his property And then on the second floor of that have a storage area above half of the garage area. And right now, these are just the plans he's got. There's nothing like permits in place or anything for that. That's just the plan it is right now. And that is basically due to the limited availability in the backyard. If you want to pull up the show, Amber, can you? This will give you a little bit better idea of what we're talking about. So yeah, it's a little hard to see there, but the black line that's running down the back of that property line is that 42-inch stormwater pipe, which basically, you know, our Public Works Department's not going to want anything within 5 foot of that, so that even pushes it further back off of that property line and really restricts what area they do have available to put in something like a detached garage or storage area on that property. There are 3 separate sections, or 3 separate issues, really 4 sections in the code that this is going to need to address. The first one is LDC 5.1.2C3, which states that that's what establishes the accessory structures in excess of 200 square foot have to have a 7.5 foot side setback. Again, the property owner is requesting that down to a 2 foot side setback on the southern property line on there. Next is there's 2 separate sections, LDC 5.1.2A4 and 5.1.7D, that both basically state that the accessory structures, or the second one goes specifically for detached garages, cannot be located in an easement. The third section is LDC 5.1.2C1. That says that accessory structures shall not exceed 1 story except where an accessory dwelling unit is approved in the 2nd story above a garage. The total structure that he's proposing would remain below the 20-foot maximum allowed accessory structure. However, our code does specifically prohibit that 2nd story unless it's an accessory dwelling. Speaking with the property owner, he could do that if he needed to, but ultimately he's really just looking for storage space there. And with that backyard being kind of cut off so much of it, you know, the detached garage could go there as a single story, doesn't really have anywhere for a storage unit on the property there. That does bring us to section 8.2.2 of the code, which is the 9 criteria for the findings of a variance. The first one is that the need for the proposed variance is due to the unusual or unique physical shape, configuration, or other physical condition of the development site. And as we discussed, that stormwater pipe is very unusual for this property. It does cut off about 1,000 square foot of developable land in the back of his property, with that very large stormwater pipe running through the back of that. Next is the low interpretation of the code would deprive the property owner of property rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district, and staff does believe that that would cause a hardship there just because of the not being able to locate any of the sheds in that further back area there. Does very much limit this property. Third is that the special conditions are not the result of the actions of the property owner, and the city is the one who put that stormwater pipe back there, so that is definitely not the result of the actions of the property owner. Fourth is that this shall not provide the property owner any special privilege that is denied to other development sites. And while by nature a variance does provide special privilege on there, given the fact of the situation and how this was arranged on the property, staff does not feel that this would be any real special privilege over a property that would not have those restrictions on it. The fifth one is whether or not this variance is the minimum variance that results in a reasonable use of the land, building or structure. This is something that can really be discussed by the board. I said right now the applicant is requesting a 2 foot side setback. We could get into debates on whether or not that's the minimum in order to achieve what he's trying to do with the garage and the 2nd story on there. That's what he's requesting on there. But ultimately that judgment call will come down to the board's decision on that one. Next is whether or not this shall ensure compatibility of the resulting development with the uses of lands and character in the adjacent and surrounding neighborhoods. And staff does believe this would be compatible. While that will place the structure pretty close to that south property line, the house just south of there is a corner lot, and it's angled so that it's facing kind of the corner of those 2 things. So really where the structure is proposed to go, do you want to bring up the proposed one? It's one of the photos to the right. Nope.
I'm sorry.
So where he's proposing to put it in the back there, that's really would be the backyard. So it's really the side yard, but it would really be more what the traditional backyard of his neighbor's property on there. And we can distribute it out. The neighbor that owns that property there did write a letter saying that they're okay with this variance if it's issued. We do have copies of that for the board members here.
And can that staff also be entered in?
It would, yes, it'll have to be entered. We just did not receive it in time to put it as part of the actual package in there. Seventh is that it's consistent with the intents and purposes of the requirements of the LDC, and staff does feel that it is in there, specifically being equitable in terms of consistency with the staff's regulations and procedures. Again, this is following the code. While this is specifically not what's allowed in the code, the various procedures are in there and they're being followed, and staff feels with the unique situations on here that it would be appropriate for that one there. Eighth is that it's consistent with the provisions of the comprehensive plan, and this is a pretty standard answer on this one for the residential variances on here, that is to maintain a safe and adequate supply of housing by preserving the existing stable neighborhoods, stabilizing and enhancing neighborhoods that are in transition, and restoring and rehabilitating neighborhoods that have declined. And the final criteria on here is that it is not detrimental to health, safety, or general welfare of the public, and staff does not feel that it would be. And with those findings of fact, staff does believe that this meets the criteria outlined in section 8.2.2. And with that, staff respectfully recommends the local planning agency approve the variance request for the following three sections. And again, these can be addressed independently. They'll have to be addressed independently, as they are three separate variances really for this. The first one would be to reduce the 7.5-foot side setback down to a 2-foot side setback on the southern property line. Second would be to eliminate the restrictions of a permanent structure being located in an easement. And finally would be the elimination of the restriction from a second story only being allowed for an accessory dwelling. And again, as always, if the LPA does approve or deny the application, then findings as to each of the factors listed in section 8.2.2 of the code will need to be made on the record. Pending any questions.
How long did you say the storm drain's been there?
I'm sorry?
How long has the storm drain been there?
2016 it was installed.
Thank you.
And that is something that our Public Works is looking at, because it's not just this property, obviously, that stormwater does not stay in that easement. They're working on that. That's obviously a much longer solution down there. Like I said, we could just let that one play out, but that's going to really probably delay their project. That's why, since we were bringing the other variances here, we just decided to bring the variance for that one as well.
Yep.
And this is just for y'all's benefit. Do you know the status of the easement work with Public Works? Have there been any hiccups? Are both sides playing fair on that?
I think everybody's playing fair on that. I'm not really privy to that. The easements really are their Public Works in there. Frankly, I don't know if it's a huge priority on them to fix this, just because they knew that we were going through this process and things, and it's on their radar to do this. I don't know how far they are on it.
And the only reason I bring that up, board, is y'all can condition any variance y'all do grant tonight on the granting of the easements the city will need due to the placement of the pipe outside of the actual easement that was supposed to be placed in originally.
So how does that happen? How does it happen that they're that far off?
I do not have an answer to that. I'm assuming there was a logical reason for it. I don't know, obviously the more turns and twists you put in the pipes, the worse it is for the flow of those pipes. Sometimes it can deal with the elevation, but if anything I would answer would be purely speculative.
Any other questions?
And the property owner is here.
Sir?
Hi, everyone. It's Chris Egg. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to come in and talk to you guys. Ms. McPherson, I've been asking that question since my wife sent me pictures of, I never have physically seen that pipe because I was in Iraq when they installed it. And my wife said our backyard looks like this. And I said, that's a lot different than it looked when I left. But I'm thankful they did put that pipe in, because the old corrugated metal caused a lot more problems than that concrete pipe does. So I'm fortunate to own the property that is the drainage point for Temple Avenue. If we didn't have those pipes, we'd probably have a lot of other problems that I wouldn't have time to worry about, trying to find some extra space for my family. The grand scheme of this is the reason Mr. Gibson already alluded to it. The storage aspect of it is When I moved in, I had one kid on the way. I was a lieutenant, and I thought I was going to be here for 3 years. 13 years later, I have 4 kids. We're a family of 6, and I'm out of space. Moving is expensive. Government shutdowns don't help. But ultimately, I'm going to try to close my garage in. That's the down the road plan. But in order to do that, all the Christmas decorations, Halloween stuff, and garage gym and kid bikes and scooters I have to find a new home. So that's just a rough idea of what I'm trying to do in my backyard. This is the first step of that, obviously, because I can't go and get any kind of plans drawn until I have where I can actually build to. And the whole reason for the variance that came up, aside from the second story storage aspect of it, was I lost a good bit of length of what I could potentially build in my yard. So I'm just looking to recapture some of that square footage with a little bit of additional width. Fortunately, I have a very good relationship with my neighbors I share the line with. And they understand. My kids spend plenty of time in their yard trying to recover things they kick over our fence, and they understand that. And there will be no vantage point on that second story. The loft-in portion, the side I plan to put the loft in is the side that favors my yard. So while there may be some windows elevated to allow natural light, and there will be no elevated vantage point where anyone on my property could stand and look down into someone else's yard. I wouldn't appreciate that as a homeowner. So the elevated positions will basically be overlooking my backyard, not my neighbors. So, but that's ultimately what the plan is. I still got a long way to go, but it starts here tonight with you guys talking about a variance. So I appreciate the opportunity. Do any of you have any questions in terms of the grand scheme of what I'm looking to do?
It's a bit nice building. Looks nice.
I hope it looks, my goal is to find someone that can build me something that looks just like that picture does and hopefully is nice, but I'm sure I'll be able to find some local businesses to help me out with that. But
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question? Do you mind? Sure. Do you have any issue with the variance that you grant for tonight being conditioned on granting that easement the city will need for where the pipe is located?
No, the gentleman that, the GIS department, I contacted them, they had their survey team come out and they had the robot, I guess, and they went down and mapped it. They flagged the center line of the pipe and they spray painted the offset points. So anything I've planned or tentative plans have been predicated off of those additional easement setbacks off of what they placed in the yard. So as long as those lines don't shift, I guess beyond what the survey team marked in the yard, there should be no issue. And I didn't build even right up to those points. I know that things aren't always perfect. I don't want anyone to have to destroy or break up concrete or a structure that I built. So I've offered myself an additional buffer off of what the survey team marked just to make sure that we're safe. So it should not be an issue if they go in and adjust the easement for the cattywampus pipe path that has found its way across the backyard. So it shouldn't be an issue.
There's a fence, there's already a fence in between the property?
On the south?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. There's already a fence there, and then there's the whole yard is privacy fenced as well on all sides.
This will cut down the children's playing area.
It will, except for the interior portion of that. When I say it's multi-use, there will be ample space for activities inside there. It's not for me. It is to contain my horde of children and give them space to put their stuff and hopefully maybe hang their items on a wall or use an actual storage system instead of the clutter that I have in my garage currently that doesn't house cars. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think you treat them one at a time. Is that correct?
That'd be my recommendation, yes.
I make a motion that do you want me to state the land development code in the motion?
No, there's, on the recommendation in the staff report, under
Okay.
section 4, it says recommendation. If you read out 4.1.1, that's the first one.
All right. I recommend the 7.5-foot setback for an accessory structure to a 2-foot side setback located on the southern property line.
Okay.
And your motion is to approve of the variance for that.
Approve the variance, correct.
Rennie seconds.
Okay, I have a question. Can I ask a question since we're
Sure.
going to discussion? My question is for the attorney. So at what point do we need to put in here for additional easement for the city? Which one of these actually?
I was about to actually ask, just condition all three of them on that because the whole condition has been created by the pipe. And so all the variances are being requested due to the location of the pipe. Is that correct?
Okay, so is the pipe actually going to be moved or?
No, this is so the pipe does not have to be moved by the city.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
So,
And none of this variance is for the rear where the pipe is anyway, it's just,
Correct.
you just gotta move it because you can't put it behind there.
And I might be speaking out of turn, if the pipe was not there, then the basis for this variance would not exist. That's the best, so the location of the pipe has created the necessity of the request for the variance. And so the only thing I would ask is
So
maybe
I will
if you would.
amend the discussion that it is contingent on the city's additional variance needed for the pipe.
Easement,
Easement.
receiving an easement.
All right. And I need that seconded.
I'll second the amended motion.
Thank you.
All right, could I get a vote, please? Oh, I'm sorry.
Public comment.
Public comments? None heard? None vote. All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, on the second, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just have one question as a follow-up, just because this is.
Come to the microphone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. For the contingent portion, I know you had said the process was ongoing and you weren't sure of the priority. My only concern would be that my plan is to move out on this sometime in calendar year 2026. In terms of the next step would be variance and then plans and then construction. I worry that I will potentially outpace the city's municipal process.
I don't think you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, because contingent is one thing, but if it's already there, I'm hoping what was marked in my yard and on my property.
I don't think so.
Okay, just to answer that, so everybody, and it's on the record and stuff, so when you're ready to come and get the permits for this, that will go through the standard review process that includes our GIS department, which is the one that would be determining the easement that's needed in there. So by that point, they should know exactly what they're gonna need, they're gonna know where this is gonna go, so there will not be any issues with that. They would not approve the permit if it was gonna be where that easement was needed to be.
So it'll be done simultaneously, basically.
I'm sorry?
It'll be done simultaneously.
It could be, yes.
Okay, perfect.
But it would not hold him up.
Right.
That's fair.
That's fair.
I move to the elimination of the restriction from a permanent structure being located in an easement for this said property.
And that's also contingent,
Contingent upon the city
receiving an easement.
easement.
Rennie seconds.
Comments? None heard? Let's vote. Motion carries 6-0.
I move for the elimination of a restriction for a secondary story only being allowed for an accessory dwelling contingent upon the city's easement.
Rennie seconds.
And let's vote.
And public comment.
Oh, public comments.
Who's second?
Oh, I did. I'm sorry.
All right, motion carries 6-0. All right. Very good.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, the next one is the request for the variance to reduce the rear setback lot at 312 Lee Miller Drive Northwest. Ms. Wilson.
Amy Nelson Wolf, City Planning Supervisor. This is for the location of 312 Lee Miller Drive Northwest. It was constructed back in 1964, and when the structure was built, it was put in with a rear yard setback of 7 feet 7 inches on the southeast side of the property. And right now, the structure does contain a porch/deck with the rear yard setback at approximately 16 feet 7 inches. And back on September 12th of 2025, staff received a building permit for an application for a 14 by 18 foot screened enclosure that would already be on the existing porch deck that's there now. And the property is owned by,
18, you said.
I'd say that one more time.
You said
14 by 8.
Oh,
My apologies.
no, that's fine.
14 by 8. After reviewing the application and the site plans, it was determined at that time that the property would be considered a detrimental nonconformity according to section 8.01.02 of the Land Development Code. So at this time, the building permit has not been approved. And back on October 20th of 2025, we received the application for the variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback of the non-conforming structure. And that came in from the property owner, Bridget Carnley, for the property at 312 Lee Miller Drive. So it states in section 4.01.01, the minimum rear yard setback for property zoned R1 is 25 feet. The survey provided by the landowner shows the corner of the house is 7 feet 7 inches from the rear property line. And you can see that up there on the section. And you can see the 14 by 8 in the yellow. That's where they want to put in the screen porch on the already existing. So the encroachment into the required setback is less than 10% of, and it's considered to be benign non-conformity, sorry, losing my spot. And it states that the non-conformity is not identified as benign shall be considered a detrimental non-conformity. The existing home is encroaching at 69.7% into the rear setback and is therefore considered a detrimental non-conformity. So this is where we go into section 8.02.01 of the Land Development Code. For the purpose of the variance is to provide them the means to grant permission to depart from the standards of the zoning district where unique characteristics of the parcel together with the imposition of a specific regulation of the zoning district results in a hardship. And according to 8.02.02, the variance is to be approved or approved with conditions. The local planning agency, LPA, shall make a positive finding based on the evidence submitted within. So the need for the proposed variance is due to the unusual and unique physical shape, configuration, and other physical conditions of the development and site. These special conditions are not generally applicable to other land, structures, or buildings at the same zoning district. Staff finds that while the overall lot shape and size is not unusual, the configuration of the house is angled towards the corner of the lot. It does pose a challenge not typically seen on normal lots in the city. So literal interpretation and application of the provisions of this LDC would provide the property owner of the property rights commonly enjoyed by other properties, the same zoning district, resulting in undue hardship. Staff finds that the literal interpretation of the application of the LDC would result in a hardship for the owner. The house was built back in 1964 and as previously stated, the angle of the house causes one corner of the structure to be a little closer than allowed by the LDC. As this causes a detrimental nonconformity, the owner is restricted from adding onto the house despite the additional onto the house despite the addition and meeting the LDC requirements. The structure which is a detrimental nonconformity shall not be expanded, stated by LDC 8.01.07. 2.2.3, as special conditions are not the result of actions of the property owner and are not solely based on the desire to reduce the development cost. Staff finds that the special conditions are not a result of the actions of the property owner or based solely on reduced cost. As stated, the house was built in 1964 and the owners purchased the property in 2019. 2.2.4, approval of the proposed variance shall not provide the property any special privileges that is denied or to other development sites within the same zoning district. Staff finds that this approval would not provide the owner any special privileges, as the proposed addition will be required to meet all LDC requirements. 2.2.5, the proposed variance is a minimum variance that results in the reasonable use of land, building, or structure. Staff finds that the variance granted is the minimum necessary to afford the applicant reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. 2.2.6, approval of the proposed variance shall ensure compatibility of resulting development with the uses of land and character of the adjacent and surrounding neighborhoods. Staff finds that the proposed screen porch enclosure will be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. 2.2.7, the proposed variance is consistent with the intent and purposes of requirements of the LDC. Staff finds this proposal meets the specific intents of the LDC, being equitable in the terms of consistency with the established regulations and procedures, respecting the rights of property owners while taking into consideration the interest of all citizens of the city. Staff finds that approval of this variance is equitable and allows this homeowner the ability to make improvements to the house. The proposal variance is consistent with the provisions of the comprehensive plan, and staff finds that this variance is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed variance is not detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Staff finds the proposed variance is not detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So with this, the staff finds that the variance does meet all the criteria outlined in section 0.8.02.02 of the Land Development Code, and we respectfully recommend that the local planning agency approve the variance requested for 3.12 Lee Miller Drive Northwest to reduce the minimum rear yard setback to 7 feet and 7 inches. And then I think we had to where you could have two options, to where you would allow the minimum rear yard setback reduction to the 7 feet 7 inches, or it is possible that you could, I'm sorry, let me flip over here. That basically that you would waive the LDC section 8.01.07, expansion or modification of detrimental nonconformities, which basically states a structure which is a detrimental nonconformity shall not be expanded.
I'm a little confused on why this is expanding it.
Yeah, it's,
Because it's already that's like already a concrete patio, I'm assuming some kind of impervious surface. You're just putting a roof on it.
Well, you're correct. So when you're doing a screened-in porch, and it depends on how that is, like a screen porch, which is all the way up and down, that would not be considered to where you're adding onto it. But whenever you have the halfway point, I guess the kick panels is what they call them, that right there makes it into 4 walls. And so that you're adding on to the actual structure, the principal structure. So that would be expanding onto
But I
the
thought it
detrimental.
was expanding the non-conformity.
It says
which-
expansion or modification.
To any, yeah, because it's already, the principal structure is already now a detrimental nonconformity. So you're.
Right, but we've done this many times before where it's, as long as he didn't basically get closer than in this case, the 7.7, it was still not expanding it. The modification, I mean, we've allowed modifications all the time. I mean, saying you can't build anything on your house if you,
So technically under the law, like if you make any changes to a non-conforming use, then you would need to ask for a variance to make pretty much any change to it. I mean, there's very minor changes you can make, but since they're, I guess, going to be building an enclosed screen around it, that would be considered a large enough change to have to come seek a variance.
Right.
This one gets a little complicated in there because I know exactly what you're referencing. We have done several of those. That's where it's key to understand the difference between a benign nonconformity and a detrimental nonconformity. So your rear setback for an R1 property is 25 feet. If you're, say, 2 feet into that setback, your house is set back 23 feet. That's less than 10% into that setback. That makes it a benign nonconformity, and you can expand that as long as the LPA approves it, and it does not increase the extent of that nonconformity. That's what's in the code that says you can do that if it's a benign nonconformity. The fact that this is more than 10% of that rear setback is what makes this a detrimental nonconformity. And the code very clearly says in there, it may not be expanded. Even if that expansion meets the code, you cannot expand it at all. And that's why really there's the two different options on there for this. One, you could approve a variance to that part of the code that says you cannot expand this. And that's fine, because they can expand it and they can build the screen porch. The other alternative is to grant a variance to the rear setback. What that does is reestablishes so that 25-foot setback no longer exists. That 7.7 foot is now the rear setback, which means the structure is no longer non-conforming at all. What that does is basically cleans this house up for the future as well. If you provide a variance right now to waive the expansion of a detrimental nonconformity, that's good for this project. But if you gave the variance to the rear setback, that's basically reestablishing a new setback, and the house is now conforming. So they would not run into this problem again in the future.
Can I ask a question? Have the neighbors, I mean, everybody's been notified, are there neighbors? I'm not familiar with this area.
There are, and I know a few neighbors have reached out and asked questions about it just because the signs are posted out there.
Okay.
Yeah, most of them, when they called in, they wanted to know first of all what it was for.
Right.
And once that was explained to them, they were like, oh, that's all it is? Okay, thanks. And so I had no complaints about it.
And the proposal meets LDC requirements. So this screened-in porch would be allowed to be built, no questions. Nobody would have to come here except for the fact that that structure is sitting with a 7.7 foot rear setback. That's what creates that detrimental nonconformity, which means we've got to come here for this.
And typical clarification, if they approve the second variance that you had mentioned, or the option, then if Ms. Carnley wants to tear down the screen porch and reconfigure it, but in that same footprint, she would not have to come back for a variance.
That is correct. And that's why that would be my recommendation, is to just reestablish that rear setback to the 7.7 feet. That way this doesn't come back in the future, because it is a very small addition, just the 14 by 8 foot screened in area on there. But if down the road she wanted to screen in the whole thing, we'd have to come right back here again for the variance to modify the detrimental nonconformity.
Is there anybody here for the objective?
Hi, thank you.
State your name.
You bet. Oh, Bridget Carnley. We've lived in the house since 2019. Well, my daughter and her son, my grandson, we're gonna share housing for economic reasons. And what I want to do is add this little screened-in porch to give my little mother-in-law room a little bit more space for me and my cats, honestly. A little bit more privacy for my daughter and grandson. So if I want to come from the carport into my bedroom, I can do that. That's really the whole purpose behind it. You have any questions for me?
I would recommend if there are no more questions or comments, I will recommend that we reestablish the rear setback to 7.7.
Thank you.
And grant the variance.
And grant the variance.
I'll second that.
And then after y'all debate it, make sure to seek public comment.
Any more discussion?
And it is based on the findings.
Public comments? Yes.
And then your motion was based on all the required findings in the Code of Ordinances, correct? All?
Yes.
Okay, this is the request for variance to the maximum allowed impervious amount at 100 Maryland Avenue Northwest.
Okay, the subject property here is 100 Maryland Avenue Northwest, and the owners are Monty L. Wyrick, Beebe, and Handan Williams. MAC on September 3rd, 2025, a permit application was submitted for a new 24 by 12 foot it's basically 288 square foot in-ground pool. This permit was reviewed and approved with the LDC requirements for setbacks and impervious ratio requirements. On September 9th, the permit was submitted for an extension to a driveway. The permit was reviewed and approved by Public Works Utilities. Per LDC 4.01.01B, the maximum allowable impervious surface ratio is 50%, and the extension of the new driveway increased the property's impervious surface ratio to a 53.2%. Now, on September 24th, an application was submitted for a variance from the requirement outlined in section 4.01.01 of the Land Development Code regarding impervious surface requirements. The applicant submitted on October 3rd an inquiry about adding an accessory structure to his property, and this accessory structure would be a 10 by 20 at 200 square foot. And so per LDC C3A, accessory buildings up to 200 square feet and floor area shall be set back 3 feet from the side or rear setback property lines. The addition of the 200 square foot accessory structure increases the property's impervious surface ratio to 55.1%. So on October 8th, the applicant met with the planning department to discuss the issues with the property and decided to put in for the variance for his impervious surface. So we go into section 8.02.01 for the Land Development Code. This is the purpose of the variance and has provided a means to grant permission and depart from the standards of the zoning district where unique characteristics of the parcel together with the imposition of the specific regulations of the zoning district result in a hardship. So going through question number 1, the 9 criteria. The need for the proposed variance is due to an unusual or unique physical shape, configuration, or other physical condition of the development site. The staff finds that this property is not of unusual or unique physical shape, configuration, or other physical condition. The property is approximately 0.25 acres in size and is roughly rectangular in shape with the approximate lot dimensions of 85 feet by 129 feet. This property is the same approximate shape and size as many other properties in the neighborhood, and this property is the corner lot on the southern side property line abutting Holmes Boulevard Northwest. So with this, the property owner of the property rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district resulted in an undue hardship. The staff finds that the literal interpretation of the Land Development Code would not result in a hardship to the property owner. The maximum impervious surface ratio is consistently enforced across all zoning districts. The special conditions are not a result of the actions of the property owner and are not based solely on the desire to reduce development cost. Staff finds that the additional impervious surface additions were at the direction of the property owner. Approval of the proposed variance shall not provide the property any special privileges that is denied to other development sites within the same zoning district. Staff finds that granting this variance would result in a special privilege not afforded to other development sites. As previously noted, impervious surface ratios limits are enforced to help mitigate flood risk for both the subject property and neighboring areas. The proposed variance is a minimum variance that results in reasonable use of land, building, and structure. The staff finds that the applicant has not shown that the property is subject to a hardship that is unique or particular to the land itself. Instead, the request appears to be a desire to expand or alter the property beyond what is allowed by the zoning regulations. Approval of the proposed variance shall ensure compatibility of resulting development with the uses of the land and character of the adjacent and surrounding neighborhoods. And staff finds that it is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, and the maximum impervious surface ratio is intended to ensure adequate stormwater absorption and prevent negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The proposed variance is consistent with the intent and purposes of the requirements of the LDC. Staff finds that this proposal does not meet the specific intent of the LDC. Specifically, LDC 1.00.01B7 states being equitable in the terms of consistency with the established regulations and procedures, respecting the rights of property owners while taking into consideration the interests of all the citizens of the city. The proposed variance is consistent with the provisions of the comprehensive plan. We find that the variance is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed variance is not detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the public. The staff finds that it would not be detrimental to the health and safety of the general welfare of the public. So with that, staff finds the variance request, it does not meet all the criteria outlined in section 8.02.02 of the Land Development Code. Based on the findings, we respectfully recommend that the local planning agency deny the variance request and to increase the maximum allowed impervious surface ratio to 55.1%. And on this one, there is, again, a little caveat, I believe, to that one. We have two of them, because first, whenever they put in the in-ground pool and then put in the driveway, that increased the impervious surface to 53, but when they want to add the 200 square foot shed, that's going to raise it up to 55.1. So we're looking to at least get approval for what's already there, which is the driveway and the pool. The accessory structure has not been put in yet, so that would be something on top of that.
Wait, you're asking for approval for the pool and the driveway?
I'm asking for approval for, well, you can look at it two ways. Either the 53.2% impervious, variance for that because it's already put in place, or for the 55.1%, which would include the accessory structure on top of what's already there.
So this wasn't done when they did the permitting, they didn't count on this, the 53 for the driveway and the pool.
No, what happened is the pool came in, so when the pool came in, that was approved, it was under the 50%. And then they came back and they did the driveway, and Public Works approved that, but within planning, we did not see that. We didn't get that within our...
It was basically a process error.
Right.
We've amended that now, so driveway permits at that time were only reviewed by Public Works.
Yes.
They weren't necessarily looking for this, pushing it over the impervious. Sometimes they would catch it, but they weren't always looking at it as probably as keenly as the planning staff would. We've since changed that process, and now planning is looking at every driveway permit in addition to Public Works, so that way this doesn't happen again. But at the time, they did apply for the permit, they were issued a permit, they did the work in accordance with the permit. That's why now they're at the 53% now. Since all that was permitted, that's why staff were willing to recommend approval to make them legal now at the 53%, because it was really a staff error on approving that permit. It should not have been approved, but it just was not reviewed by staff at that time.
And that would actually fall under the elements because that's not a hardship created by
Correct.
the property owner.
Exactly.
I just have a question for Tim or you, ma'am. If they were to put the structure off the ground, is that still considered impervious?
It is. So, I mean, depending on what it is, it's still really, it doesn't allow for the ready absorption of water. The vast majority of that, can water get under the edges? Yes. It doesn't go all, water's not going to flow all the way under there and absorb into the ground. There are still areas of that will largely be impervious.
Okay.
And that's where really it's at that point.
Do we have any information on that's been provided provided to us as to where this structure is
Going to go?
We should have a picture.
Am I missing something?
Yeah, I didn't see it in here.
Yes.
Could be around in that area there.
Okay.
How does that affect the setbacks, the side setback there, the structure's going in there?
It won't, because if it's 200 square feet, it has to be 3 feet from the side.
Okay.
So they would be fine with that.
That's not already on this GIS map, that's not the shed. There's I guess we're waiting for,
On the GIS map?
yeah, there's a little,
Yes, there is. What that is that shed was originally over on the other side of the pool, and it had to be moved, so it was moved over there temporarily. But I'm sure the property owner can explain that a little bit more.
Does that shed have to be permitted?
Does it? Yes. It has, did you say permitted?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess the question I would have, are you replacing the shed that's already there?
That shed's not there, so it's...
You'll have your opportunity.
I think it's up there.
Okay. Sorry,
It-
no more questions.
All right. I think we need to hear from the applicant.
Yep.
Okay.
I thought Mr. Coates was looking at me when that question got...
It was.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bob Tar, BB. I live in Winter, Maryland. My wife, Andy Williams. So, yeah, pervious and non-pervious. Well, let me tell you, I didn't know what that was, so I had it explained to me. And I also have those signs in front of my house, and I've had numerous people, neighbors and not neighbors, ask me, what the heck is that? So I go into this whole story of what it is, and I ask them, you know what pervious and non-pervious is? And they look at me, I said, I didn't either, and they go, well, we don't. And then I explain to them. So nobody knows what pervious and non-pervious means. I don't know how we can fix that for everybody in the city, but it would help everybody out. So knowing I'm at 53% already, if I would have been aware of that, obviously I would have cut the corners on my driveway, I would have shrank the footprint of the pool, but that's where we're at. I have plenty of notes, but I'm going to kind of paraphrase everything. In that top left corner where there was a small shed, again, it had to be moved, and I moved it down there where it says North 89.5150 out of the way so the guys can build the pool. And then now that shed's gone. And then, you know, like, okay, now I need a shed because, you know, I got to have my stuff for my man cave. And then that's when I find out about this pervious, non-pervious, and the thing about the north side of the house, that's all my windows, and that's also back by the pool, there's a slope. There was a slope there before in my yard, and now it's a little bit even higher. And all the windows are on that side. On the south side, by Holmes Avenue, just left of that small thing where my AC sits, where it says 59.5 right below that, there's one window, and that's the bathroom window, and it's about this high. So in my thinking, like, great, I still got a space for a shed, and then I found out this pervious and the variance request. Also on the north side, I've already paid to have my neighbor's trees cut down because they're leaning like this over the fence. And so I want to put this shed on this side, you know, to make the best use of my land, and it's our forever home. I'm retired. I can't give my wife's age, but she's close behind me. You know, our grandkids come over there. I mean, I can counter pretty much every question and statements that she put, but, you know, I don't think we want to be here all night because I got about 3 pages. But, you know, mostly it's about closing, blocking windows, ventilation, to do any tree work because there's still trees on that side of the property. My pool is screened in, but I still got leaves everywhere that I'm taking care of. So that's why we're trying to get the shed on the south side, again, from all my junk, I guess.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I have a question for you. I see that part of the driveway actually comes down and around the corner on that south side. Is that not feasible to put the shed on that area?
What are you talking about now?
The driveway right there.
Oh, I'm getting a carport put in, which should be in the permit office somewhere in the process. And even if I did put it there, I'm still on the variance.
Okay, and the driveway is done with concrete or pavers?
Concrete, yeah. And I have no problem, the city having to dig a trench there in my concrete to lay new technology that might come our way in 10 years. And I have no problem paying out of my own pocket to have, if I do get approved for that shed, to move the shed so they can put that technology that could go in there in 10 years or so. And I can just keep rambling on, but it always comes down, best use of the land for us as homeowners. It's for our forever home. And like I said, there's minimal blocking it. I only have that one window on that side, and it works out the best. Because in the left-hand corner at the top, that's where it's sloped. So if I put a shed in there, then I'm putting steps in, and the build starts to get more complicated. And I'm not going over 200 square feet. That's all I need. And that's 18.4. I put the shed, I split it. I put 4 feet from the property line, 4 feet from my house. I can drive my lawnmower through there if I need to. So that's really where I'm at on this. So, if you have any other questions.
Tim, I have a question actually. The issue here is not a setback or variance, or that's not the variance issue, it's the impervious.
That's
issue.
correct.
And just if I can add to that, obviously it happened to no fault of anybody in particular, but if I could have shrank that footprint, I would have. But since I can, and now I'm even asking for more, but, I guess I'm up against the wall right now until you guys decide what you want to do. Because you'll have to break a lot of concrete to get under 50%. Might take me a minute.
I have a question for staff. If it's pavers, that's not considered impervious, is it?
As long as they're impervious pavers, or pervious pavers.
Yeah.
You have impervious where it won't go through, and then there are some out there that are pervious pavers that they could use instead.
Okay.
There's all sorts of pervious materials out there. There's pervious concrete, there's pervious asphalt, pervious pavers. It's typically more of a system, even though it's not like you can just grab a paver and stick it on the ground and that's pervious. There's a whole system. You have to go down several feet. There's layers of gravel, layers of sand. There's a whole system to it to make it pervious.
Pervious, right, okay.
Correct. Typically, they're impervious, and there is the conversations, the ones that we can calculate for pervious. You've seen some of the ones that is more like the grid with grass growing in the little small squares. Those are partially pervious, and typically with those, the manufacturer will actually tell you what percentage of it is pervious, and we can calculate that to give perviousness off of there. But the ones, we've heard the argument before, well, water will still absorb in, even if they're butted right up against each other, and yes, a tiny amount will go into there, but if they're installed properly, there's sand packed in there, you're not really getting much of any absorption into there. So typically, they're going to be considered impervious.
Okay.
I'm done making non-pervious stuff, I'm telling you. Except
Well, it's too late to change it anyway,
Yeah.
but I was asking for our reference on that one. Okay.
Chairman, I think the spouse of the applicant wanted to speak to, she kept raising her hand.
Oh, my boss is coming.
So, first of all, I want to say thank you for everybody informing us on what we need to do. And we always ask permit first. We don't build and say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Because we've been watching all the videos after this variance, and we have the signs in our yard and people stopping and asking us, and we're watching the videos and see what was the terms. So I'm learning a lot of terms and rules and regulations, so that helps me a lot. I just want to say thank you for that. Really open and share with everybody else, so if they make a decision, I can guide them through, this is what you need to do. And second of all, this is our dream home, and we've been traveling overseas for a long time, and we came here, settled down, and we have the pool. My grandson enjoys more than anybody else. and everything is nice yard, you know, first time pool owners, house owners were so excited. And that storage, that was the only place. If it was the other side, it would be okay, but that was the only place that could go, and that was the issue, and then we learned about in previous. So, say thank you again. Just wanted to share that.
Any questions for me?
Any other questions?
I have a question for staff. I've heard them say twice that the other side would not have been a problem, but that still creates an impervious surface, is that correct?
That is correct. Unless the shed was to be placed on already existing impervious materials, like you mentioned over part of that driveway there where they're planning the carport, that would have been allowed because you're not adding any other impervious. The north side of the property is still pervious, so if the shed were to be put up there, we would run into the same situation.
Okay.
The only question on this one really is the impervious allowances,
Okay.
not setbacks, not sizes, nothing like that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something, thank you.
So when the permits are given, is the impervious amount always calculated so they know you're coming close, don't get anything else,
They
this
are now.
can't happen?
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Yes.
But it was the driveway that started this.
That's
So if they would have
Yes.
been told you're too far over, they would have been known to bring that back.
Correct.
correct, to keep it under the 50. That's why I said staff is happy to support a variance to the 53.2, I believe it is, because that was, I mean, nobody told them, hey, you know, you're going over your amount here or anything like that. That was the permit. They did, like they said, you know, they came in, they pulled permits for what they were doing. It just got through without the impervious review on that one, which is why we've changed the process, honestly, is because of this one.
And I understand that, but had this been caught by staff, which created this problem, they could have corrected everything and built everything down to a 50%.
I mean, that's a potential.
Okay.
Typically,
That's all I mean,
yeah.
It's a potential, that's it, yeah. Okay.
Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Discussions?
I'd like to make a motion that we grant approval for the maximum allowable impervious area on the subject property to be 53.2%.
So are we doing two approvals here, or?
No.
No, either that motion will die for lack of a second, and the two alternatives, there's actually unlimited alternatives on the variance request. You can always go less than 55, their ultimate request, which is 55 point something %. But if this motion dies for lack of a second, then someone needs to either make a motion to deny it altogether or accept the recommendation of 55.1%. 1%. I'll say 55%. Sorry. But or you can pick a lesser number than that too, if you don't like the 53 number that Ms. Wilson said.
Oh, they'd had less driveway if they had done it.
Wait a
If
minute,
the
we're
staff
not
had gone
discussing, we need a second.
through. Oh, okay.
Okay, I will second it. This is just for the,
Discussion.
this is for what is currently now, let's discuss. So currently it's 55, it's 53.
53.
And there's none, and aside from making them tear out, which is unreasonable, that needs to be approved in my opinion. So,
That
Well, it
is
had,
not a reason to second, is to have the discussion, because we had discussion first.
He can
Correct.
second it for any reason he wants, so no, that's part of his debate after he
Not to
seconded it. So,
recommend
yeah.
that for it, okay.
right, it didn't come before staff, the driveway didn't come before
Right.
staff. Had it come before staff, they'd have never had a driveway that big in the first place.
But my problem
But
with this is that staff created this by not having this
Well, when staff,
fail
it didn't go to
system,
staff.
fail system in place.
Correct.
And therefore, had he known that he was getting close and having this discussion when they put the pool in, he could have narrowed back a little bit on one of those
The pool was
areas.
put in first, wasn't it?
Right.
The pool was
Then he could have
put in
narrowed
the
back
driveway. But the fact he's not willing to put the shed on the driveway portion, 'cause it's already
But then he
over the
could have
50%.
There's no room.
put it back, I think is for 2%,
It's 5%.
it's, no, because it's 53 they're already granting and want to give. So we're only asking for 2% on this.
Yeah, they're
because
asking
they already
for
want to
2
say they're
additional
wrong
percent.
because
Right.
they didn't have the fail-safe.
Well, they need us
So
to
now-
grant the 53 as well.
Right. It's
Is
almost
that
like
right
it should have
now
been
it's
2.
non-conforming.
That's why I was asking, are we voting on 2 or are we voting on 1?
No, because you're either going to approve the full 55%, the 53%, which is what it currently is without the shed, or totally reject it and make them move out.
Right, but from my understanding, you were asking for 55%.
Correct.
The staff is asking for 53%. So to me, that is we are asking for 2 different approvals here.
We have to
Not-
approve
not
one or
one.
the other.
They're not going to.
I mean, you could do it, you could do it that way if you want. Y'all could do 2 separate motions if you want, or just do 1 motion.
Oh, I see.
See what I'm saying here? So
Yeah, you can approve the 53 and then approve the
Right.
55. I
So,
got you.
so Tim, do we do 2 or do we do?
It's up to you.
1? I mean,
Like Mr. Burns said, it's really up to y'all on that. I mean, if you're gonna approve the 55, it would just make sense to just do 1 motion approval for the
Right.
55%.
Yeah, I think I would-
But if you want to approve the 53 and then go into a discussion on the 55, I mean, it's legit if you guys choose to do it that way.
Well, I think we can, if we vote on this one and then just make another one. So the 53
Yeah.
is,
You're the chairman, so you have that power.
yeah,
to
let's
do it that way.
let's vote on this one, the 53.
So we're voting on the staff's
Recommendation.
recommendation, not what they're asking for
At this point.
at this
At
point.
this point.
Okay.
And public comment. too.
Yes.
So clarify for me that if you vote no or yes, whichever way, and it doesn't,
If we vote no on this, then it's dead and it's down to 50, right?
If you vote no on this, I think though, with the question, Ms. Kincaid, I think there's going to be a second motion, and y'all are going to debate that, whether or not to then do a second variance of 55%. And so I think is that the plan, sir?
Yes.
that's what I'm asking.
And given this scenario, theoretically, if the board chooses to vote no to either variance, then their maximum impervious would be set at 50% as it is in the code. The city would not come in there and say, now you need to pull out 3% of this stuff. That it would be considered an existing nonconformity at that point in time. That is a benign nonconformity, but just that's what I was saying. For staff, we were recommending the 53 as a minimum. I mean, you can approve whatever you want. We're recommending approval of 53% just because that way it keeps this property from becoming a benign nonconformity when it wasn't their fault.
Right, and I guess what I'm
yes.
asking is just to make sure that when people come and need this extra, that should be the red sign at the top that you get 50%, because many people don't come to the city and ask for variances or easements or whatever, and they just do it anyway, and half of them never get caught, or we never look at many of them. Because I can tell you on Alkanese, there's a couple backyards that are nothing but pavers, and the whole yard is pavers and driveway, and there's only very little grass on that, and that's probably why the water runs so fast. So you've never seen that issue. But people that have flown their drones figured it out and are looking at completely brick backyards. And so some of this being the city's fault, that should be the big red thing at the top of that application, that this code states 50%, so be careful.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean,
Ms.
trying to make sure I word this correctly. We do that. That is something that staff does. We'll say, hey, this appears to be at about 49%. You will not be allowed to expand anymore. Some statements along those lines is what we do. That is not a requirement. It's the right thing to do, so we do tell people on that one. But ultimately, the building permit should be approved or denied based on what they filed for. Like I said, that's an extra thing that we do for people. I honestly do not know if we made a comment on the pool permit. I did not think to look at that one. There's a chance that we did say something on there, hey, you're getting close to your impervious, because that is a standard comment that we do put on those.
Mr. Gibson, I have a question. If we don't approve this 53.2% at least, when they come for a permit to build the carport, they're going to run into the same thing because...
Now, so at that point, one of the requirements, like I said earlier, in the code, you have the code defines these things are benign nonconformities. If it's not one of those, it's detrimental. The detrimental ones are the ones that are difficult to deal with. One of the items in there that's specifically defined is an excess of impervious, not even an amount. So theoretically, if this was 100% impervious and they came in, it's still a benign nonconformity, and it would just follow those things, which can be expanded, can be built on, as long as you don't increase the extent of that nonconformity.
Okay, gotcha.
And I have a clarification question, Ms. Wilson. Your motion was made on all the factors in the Code of Ordinances, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And was the motion, and James seconded the motion?
He did
So
second.
we have a motion on the floor. Okay.
And then the chairman's made it clear that he does plan on entertaining a second motion debate to whatever, 55.
Okay, that carries 6-0. So the impervious is now 53 point whatever. Two. And now I will make a motion to allow it to be increased to 55.1 for the 200-foot accessory
I'll second.
building.
Based on the factors in the code.
Factors in the code again. Yes. I make the move.
And I'll second it.
Oh, I guess we have to write it down, though, because it's not in there.
Public comments?
Public comments?
So there will be debate first, I guess.
Do we want debate? Anybody want? Very good.
Public comment.
Public comments? No public comments. All right, and it carries 5-1.
Yeah. And just so we're on the record and clear on this one, since there was two separate variances, we're still going to have you sign both of the variance forms, and I'll go into the records on there. Ultimately, the first one is kind of moot, but since it was done, then we'll have that signed off as well.
And because technically the city could decide to appeal itself, I guess. The city could decide to appeal one of the two.
Could, yes.
So next time is ordinance number 2194, an ordinance amending LDC section 5.04.11, community residential homes. And the title is an ordinance of the city council of the city of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending section 5.04.11 of the land development code to update procedures for the review and approval of certified recovery residence requests to comply with Florida statutes, provide for authority, provide for severability, and provide for an effective date. And Amy's here to present.
All right. So for section 397.487, Florida statute was amended on June 26 of 2025, requiring each municipality to adopt an ordinance establishing procedures for the review and approval of the certified recovery residence by January 1st of 2026. The ordinance must include a process for requesting reasonable accommodations from any local land use regulation. The ordinance must be consistent with the Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 and the Title II of Americans with Disabilities Act. The ordinance must establish a written application process for requesting accommodations. It should also require each local government to date stamp each application request upon receipt. If there's an additional information required, the local government must notify the applicant in writing within the first 30 days after receipt and allow applicant 30 days to respond. The ordinance will require the local government to issue final written determination on the application within a 60-day, within 60 days after the receipt. The ordinance will require that the applicant include basic name and contact information. The ordinance may not require public hearings beyond the minimum required by law. To ensure compliance with the updated requirements of Section 397.487 Florida statute, staff proposes the following amendments to the Land Development Code. Right now, we currently have LDC Section 5.04.11, Community Residential Homes, and it has been revised to comply with the amended Section 397.487 Florida statute. So basically what this is, it's replacing what we already have in the LDC, and that's to become in compliant with, by January 1st of this year, with the Florida statute. We respectfully recommend that the local planning agency recommend that the City Council adopt ordinance number 2194, which amends the Land Development Code regarding certified recovery residents to be consistent with the amended Section 397.487 Florida statutes.
What is this?
Basically, the gist of this is right now what we currently have in place is the community residential homes. That's a recovery for treatment for addict recovery homes,
Okay,
or someone
okay.
who is getting back out into society. And it's basically updating what we currently have to match with the Florida statute once to have amended by the January 1st.
I'll make a motion to recommend the City Council adopt ordinance 2194 to amend section 5.04.11 of the Land Development Code.
Rennie seconds. Can I ask a general question? So, reading in the media, Tallahassee's somewhat leaning into local responsibilities of city governments trying to help us do a better job, if that's your perspective. Is this an attempt at that, or is this just an administrative change? I mean, is this a benign change to our code, or is there something in here we should be made aware of that changes our jurisdiction in this regard?
I think it's just a general mandate, but I'm not 100% positive.
I'll tell you this, the existing code as it's written is not very clear or enforceable, and sometimes it's enforceable, but there's some houses that try to claim they're these type of houses, and they're not really those type of houses. And this process that's established in the updated ordinance will make it clearer and make it easier, actually, I think, for the city to vet these type of houses on the front end.
I just was curious.
Whether or not it makes it easier for the city to say no, probably not, but it doesn't really change anything in that regard. The city's hands are already tied to an extent on when they can say no to these type of houses.
Yeah, we've allowed them, but some cities have not, and now they're required to have a process to allow them.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, part of the move in there. There's been a lot of case law, Mr. Burns can certainly speak better to that than I, about certain of these recovery homes that have actually sued municipalities for wanting to be there. There's some provisions where they're considered a single-family residential. There's a lot of debate on there when these things pop up, and you know, it's your neighbor, and as long as it's up to no more than 6 residents, it's considered a single-family residential. And like I said, that can be debated, but it's out there. And now this basically Florida just trying to standardize this across everybody. So you don't have some people saying, yeah, do whatever you want, and others like, no. It just really standardizes it.
Okay, thank you.
I think if you were one of the cities that didn't allow them to begin with already, you would be disappointed to hear that you have to allow them now.
Right.
Whereas Fort Walton has already allowed these.
Right, okay.
They fought them in Walton County.
And Destin too. Yeah.
We got a motion already. Yeah, we already have a motion. Second.
You ready to vote?
Yep.
did.
All right, motion carries 6-0.
He would have kicked you.
Amy, are you going to present the election of the chairperson and vice chairperson?
Question, are y'all going to do this with one motion or two?
You should do a separate motion for each position.
The background on this is every year, the members of the local planning agency elect a chairperson and vice chairperson to serve as officers of the board for the ensuing calendar year. The chair and vice chair terms are for 1 year. Officers may serve up to 2 consecutive year terms. The chair presides over the meetings and takes any action necessary to preserve the order and integrity of all proceedings before the local planning agency. Chair is also a voting member for the LPA who can make and second a motion. In the absence of the chair, the vice chair shall act as chair. Both chair and vice chair were elected to full terms on December 7th of 2023 and October 3rd of 2024. The current chair and vice chair are termed out and are not eligible to serve a third consecutive term. We respectfully recommend that the local planning agency nominate and vote for a chair and vice chair to serve from January 2026 through December of 2026.
And the vice chair could be the chairman, though. So if you were the vice chair before, you could, and vice versa if the chairman wants to be the vice chairman. So
You can flip them.
you just can't. But both of y'all are termed out.
We just did this like 2 months ago.
Well, this doesn't go into effect till January, so which is a couple months out.
All right. Well, I would, if you would accept, I would like Mr. Remington to serve as chair, if
I'll
you
second.
would so.
Okay.
All right.
So Mr. Rennie has been nominated by the current chair to be the future chairman, and
Yes.
seconded by Ms. Wilson.
All right. For that.
You do need to vote.
I can't abstain?
No.
Everybody gets a no.
You have to know
Guy
background.
always says no.
I wasn't the mover, he was.
Oh, I guess it was.
Chairman was the
I'm sitting
mover.
here staring at it, waiting for it to turn. It's me. All right.
I move Mr. Coates be the vice chair.
Rennie seconds.
I think you're fired.
Motion carries 6-0. Now I have a question. Am I turned out of everything? Of the-
Yeah, just as the chair.
Just as a chair, so okay, so I just roll it.
That's correct.
And this starts,
January.
because there won't be a December meeting?
There could be. We don't know yet. We're not past the deadline for that one, so a variance or something could come in.
Actually, I do have one item, I believe, that will be coming.
So you got one more.
Okay.
I wanted to try to put it all in tonight, but didn't happen that way.
There's enough.
All right, supervisor reports.
You guys do a very good job, by the way.
No report. Any board member reports?
And Tim, I think 2 of the members were absent though tonight, right? Or
I'm sorry?
We still have 2 members that were absent tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Or 3 members absent, yeah.
Well, Ms. Ozempic, though, she stepped off, didn't she?
But we still have the alternates and stuff, so.
It was Mr. Tom Wynn, Jamie Seifert, Thompson Seifert, and Ms. Albright.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any board?
Board reports? Anybody? No report? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. See you in December.
I was about to ask y'all if y'all prefer to, if she rushes it in December or January, would you rather get it done start of December or the start of January? If they were thinking about that. I was thinking, because
When is the January meeting?
January.
What's the date on
January
January?
meeting would be the pretty early.
We typically are not going to do a January meeting.
Okay, all right.
Typically.
There you
Make it
go.
anyway.
Hey, trust them on that.
I wasn't gonna make it anyway unless it was
We did do one this year though.
That would be the first.
Yeah, January this year worked out to be like the 6th or 7th or something
Yeah.
like that. So it was late into it, yes. So January 1st, we're definitely doing an LPA meeting. It may just be to say hi to each other, but I'm gonna have, no, I'm kidding.
That's an important question to ask.